Day 12. Authenticating and authorizing Embraco 9 members with Discord by Sven Geusens. What and why? Discord is a community tool supplying multi-server guilds access for its users with chat and VoIP rooms with a lot of bells and whistles. It works very well for small and larger communities when the focus is to have conversations in the here and now. What it is not good at is organising information for the long term. So I thought that for certain communities it would be handy to have a flexible system linked to your Discord permissions to enable certain community members to update information into this system. Enter Umbraco with its built-in member system and its content management tools we all love. What I will be showing you in this article is how to let end users create a member in an Umbraco installation if they belong to a certain server guild. On creation and every login, we will also sync permission group names, roles, to member groups in Umbraco. This allows the management of Umbraco members to be done from within Discord. To check everything works nicely, we will also be adding a dashboard with some useful information. Requirements: an Embraco 9 installation ready to go, with Models Builder available in VS, with at least one member group set up for testing. A Discord application with its client ID and secret known to you. A bot user linked to the Discord application in a server you belong to, preferably as admin to invite the bot. The bot token needs no extra permissions, as we will only be reading data that a user can't. Filled in user secrets for the following keys: Discord, bot token, client ID, client secret. Flurl.http installed, NuGet. We will be using this library to make HTTP calls to the Discord API. Optional usync installed to import the data types and document types. Disclaimer: because this article is already going to be quite large, I have left some things as quick and dirty. I will try to mention the important ones throughout the article, and have done my best to mark them in the code examples as well. This article and GitHub repository is by no means a drop-in code or a package, but will work out of the box, except for some unknown edge cases. As always, I welcome pull requests. The plan. We will be creating two big components that share some common services: the Auth 2 login flow plus permission sync, admin back office to set up which Discord guild permission groups, roles, should be synced to which Embraco membership groups. The Auth Flow. Before we write any code or do Embraco configuration, let's get a conceptual idea of what is needed to make the Auth Flow work. 1. When a user wants to log into the member area, we present them with a URL to Discord to authenticate them. 2. The user authenticates and Discord sends the user back to us with a code. 3. We exchange the code for an OAuth token behind the scenes. 4. We get the user details from Discord and save them on an Embraco member. 5. We log in the member and display a page. Now we have a basic understanding of what we are going to do first. Let's flesh out the idea. Alas, nothing is as simple as it first appears. We have quite a lot of work ahead of us. One of the things we learned from the Discord OAuth documentation is that we need to pass a state value when we redirect an end user to Discord. When Discord then redirects back to our site, it will pass that state value back. This adds a layer of security so we can guarantee the origin of that authorization callback was our site. Next is the issue that the majority of the Discord API endpoints are not accessible as a normal user. We will have to query some endpoints as a bot. I have tried my best to represent all the needed steps for a non-blocking flow into a nice diagram, as it should be easier to follow along than reading walls of text. We can see from this diagram that we will need to build the following components: Discord Login Controller to start the process, Discord Login Redirect Handler Controller to catch the authorization callback from Discord, Discord Auth Service, Discord Role Repository. Things not in the diagram, but are pretty typical from Umbraco: Logout Controller, doc types for all the controllers, some basic views for the login and logout actions. The admin back office. For the back office, we will be creating a brand new section that will let us view and define sync rules. When viewing the section, it will show us all accessible guilds. When selecting a guild, it will show us all the roles on that guild. Finally, when we select a role, it will show us all the member groups that will be assigned to a member that has a user in that guild with that role. It will also let us add new groups to a role and remove old ones. The logic to this will follow the standard pattern of HTML view to Angular controller to back-office controller to an external API and repository. So we will be building and extending the following components: dashboard.html, dashboard.controller.js, package.manifest, Discord admin controller, Discord dashboard, Discord section and section composer, Discord role table component and Discord role composer, Discord role repository. Implementing the back office. Since the back office is the most straightforward thing to build and easiest to implement, we will be tackling this first. When it is finished, we can be sure that the Discord bot part of our architecture is working, and we'll have a way to manipulate the sync rules, which member groups a member should get based on their guild roles. Getting things ready. The first thing to do is add a section. It can be done in a package manifest or C# code. I personally try to avoid the package.manifest as much as possible. Next is adding a dashboard to that section. This defines in what section it should appear, where the view file is, and what access, if any, needs to be set to be able to see this dashboard. And lastly, we tell the back office we need some files. When composing things like this, I like to keep all of the classes in one file, as they can't exist without each other. Do note the last line in the compose function. This adds a new back-office policy, so we can add an authorize attribute to our backend controller, so we don't have to check permissions in every method. Another thing you might notice is the use of constants. This is to reduce the chance of mistyping. You can find all the constants in .core/constants. Before we add the view, build the solution and give your Umbraco user access to the section, and add the following language file to the app plugins folder. Adding the dashboard view. We should now be good to add the view and Angular controller. The view uses as many Embraco directives as possible with minimal custom styling, which is just defined at the bottom of the file. It is split up into 4 boxes. Each box after the first is hidden until something is selected in the previous one, and the last one overrides the third since they both handle the syncs, viewing, removing and adding. If somebody has tips on how to remove the last 2 styles, let me know. Adding the dashboard controller. The real magic of this view happens in its controller. So let's have a look at the important bits, as most of the code in here is for reactively manipulating the DOM. The functions that actually fetch data from our back-office API are grouped under public get functions. vm.getGuilds, which guilds our bot user can see, vm.getRoles, which roles are defined on the selected guild, vm.getGroups, the membership groups that are defined in Umbraco, vm.getSyncGroups, which groups are synced to the selected role. Each of these uses the Angular HTTP service and updates the controller's data when a successful response is received. It would probably be best to show some kind of error message when the API call fails. The other functions deal with submitting data to the API and are grouped under public actions. vm.addSync adds a new guild role member group sync rule. vm.removeSync, with the parameter sync removal, marks the sync as removed if the parameter is true, disable, so that when a member logs in and has the member group assigned, it will be removed if no other guild roles are linked to the same group. If false, remove, no action will be taken when members log in for this sync, because the sync will be removed from the database. Disabled sync rules appear crossed out in the view. A repository intermezzo. That is the front end of the back end done. Before we move over to the backend controller, let's quickly talk about the repository and the Discord service it is using. Everybody has a preferred way of handling data persistence, so I'm not going to go over how I did this, but will give a shout out to the amazing Kevin Jump for supplying a nice repository pattern and more. The beauty of this pattern is that it uses the Embraco database and the related iScope accessor to wrap everything up in transactions. You can find the implementation of this in the .core repositories folder, and its registration is done with the composer. This composer also registers a migration that creates the database if it doesn't exist on startup. What is important is the DTO we will be using. Since Discord is multi-server based, we need to map guild plus role to a membership group. We also add an ID for easy selecting and a flag to know if we need to remove the membership group if the rule is disabled. The beginnings of our Discord service. On to the Discord service. For this one I will show you parts of the full file, as we will be adding to this service later when we do the actual login handling. As you might remember, the controller we will build in just a second will have 4 GET methods, with 2 of them being data from Discord. So let's add those to our Discord service. Using the flurl.http library, here to take a string, our endpoint, create a flurl request by adding an authorization header that contains our bot token. Send it as a GET and read the response as JSON, all nicely wrapped in async await. Couple things to note here. By default, flurl throws an error if it does not receive a 200 response. For the getAvailableGuilds method, we're using the users/@me/guilds endpoint and are passing a token that represents our bot user, so this endpoint will return all guilds the bot is invited to. The models used here can be found in .core models. Onward to the last piece of the back-end puzzle, the Embraco API Controller. The all-important back-end controller. Note the authorize policy equals constants.backoffice.discord section access policy attribute. This uses the policy we declared in our Discord section composer, so only users with the right permissions can call any of the methods in this controller. If we had not done this, we would have to check iBackOfficeSecurity.backOfficeSecurity.user has section access in every method. The first 2 GET methods are pretty straightforward. They get the data from our Discord service and hand it over as a list of objects. The next one gets the data from our repository and passes it along. And the last one gets all the membership groups from the Umbraco iMember group service. Next up are the post methods. These are pretty straightforward. The register role to member group checks if an existing sync exists for the guild plus role plus group and creates a new one if it doesn't. The remove member group from role checks if the item to delete exists. If it does, it updates the flag if set, and else deletes the sync. We should now have a working Discord dashboard that lets you configure synchronizations between guild roles and membership groups. Implementing the Auth Flow. I presume anyone reading this can set up doc types and can create content in Embraco. If you're going to do this manually, we need the following structure with a single property on the Discord node, Discord section, called required guild IDs. You could get this from the config instead, or add the selection of which guilds to the Discord dashboard. But for now, we fetch this from the content. Alternatively, you can use usync to import the doc types and content I used in the repo. Hack the controllers. As discussed at the beginning of this article, we will need 3 controllers. We will be using the lovely named root hijacking functionality of Umbraco to use our custom controller every time a page of a specific node type is visited. Let's start with the Logout Controller since it has the least logic in it, as we only log out the member and redirect to the parent page. Next up is the Login Controller. This one has a bit more code, but is pretty straightforward. We 1. Check our config and Umbraco structure, 2. Get some values, 3. Redirect to the Embraco authorize endpoint, which will call our callback endpoint when done. Do note the state variable that is passed along to Discord, as explained before. This is a security measure, so we can only accept callbacks that originated from us. And lastly, the callback controller. Here we, 1. Check if the state passed back to us from Discord is the one that we actually handed to it in the first place. More on this in the next section. 2. Let our Discord service handle the callback. And 3. Log in the member if allowed and redirect. Expanding the Discord service. Before we can test the controllers, we will have to expand our Discord service with all the new functionality, adding state, checking valid state, handling the callback. Before we can do any of that, we will have to add a couple more namespaces and dependencies to it. Alright, let's add the state management. This is quick and dirty and needs some extra love and attention, but what we have here works for demo purposes. We will save one GUID for every unique IP in a static dictionary. Again, never a good idea for production, but good enough to get started. The code that follows could, should, probably be in a separate class as well. So let's declare a dictionary. Next, we create our methods to get, and thus set if non-existent, a state. Note the HTTP context we are passing it to get the IP address. If we ever change the internal logic on what data makes a unique client, we do not have to change the signature. And lastly, our method to check if the passed HTTP context contains a valid state. Now that we have finished the state management, we can work on the actual callback logic. First up, let's have a look at our handle redirect method. The code should be self-documented enough to explain the intent and flow of the method, but there are a couple of extra things to note. We return an attempt class, so anything consuming this method has a clear idea when and why something failed without errors being thrown around. A fail with an email unverified exception is returned when the user that is fetched from Discord is not verified. This early returns and thus not waste extra resources on bot/temp accounts. Before we head into all the private methods this one calls, let's have a quick look at some of the more deep down code, mainly the wrapper code for the Discord API. We made 2 of these before, and we'll be adding 2 more, this time from the context of the user. Note the with OAuth bearer token. This is an FLURL extension method that adds an authentication header to the request. To get that token, we use the following method, which is the first one called in the handle redirect. Now we have all the logic done to get all the information we need to actually create and update a member. So let us do that next. Before we can actually update a member, we need to make sure that their Discord user belongs to a guild that we have access to. And now we can create, disable, update members based on the data we have collected before. Note that the member created is of type member. Nothing is stopping you from creating another member type just for Discord logins. As you might have noticed, there is one method still missing which does the actual sync between the Discord user roles and the configuration we set up in the first half of this article. And that is our back-end logic done. The only thing remaining now is to test it out, and to be able to do that we need some super basic views. Note the use of @inject. This injects the dependency into the view, just as you would do in the constructor in the controller. Homepage. Discord login, for when the configuration /Umbraco setup is invalid. Discord login redirect handler, for when something goes wrong. And with this, our journey into Discord OAuth land has come to an end. Final words. I hope this article helps people who find themselves in the specific situation of having to integrate Embraco with Discord, or more broadly, helps as a plan of attack for those having to write any kind of integration with an OAuth provider into Embraco members. This article has plenty of links to the Embraco documentation and a working GitHub repository to help you make sense of it all. If, however, something remains unclear, don't hesitate to ping me on Twitter or on the Embraco community Discord.